The first thing I noticed was that all the spoons were gone. Forks? Still in the drawer. Knives? Right there. Plates stacked. Mugs untouched. But every single spoon had vanished. I stood in the kitchen, holding an empty yogurt cup, staring into a drawer like it had just personally betrayed me. That's when she walked in and said it. I want a divorce. No hello. No good morning. No hey, where are the spoons? Just that sentence. Like she was commenting on the weather. I looked up. She was wearing that gray cardigan she never liked. No makeup. Eyes calm. Arms folded like she was waiting for a receipt. I didn't say a word. I just nodded, dropped the yogurt cup in the sink, and closed the spoonless drawer. The quiet before the avalanche. That night, I didn't sleep. Not because of heartbreak. Not because of rage. Because I couldn't stop thinking about the spoons. Where did they go? Why only spoons? Who even removes spoons before leaving someone? You can tell a lot about a person by the way they break things off. Some people cry. Some ghost. Some torch the whole thing with gasoline and bad decisions. Marlene? She steals spoons and files for divorce in a whisper. The first clue wasn't a text. People always say they knew something was wrong from a message, a smell, a strange charge on a credit card. Me? I figured it out because of a voice memo. 2 weeks earlier, I had accidentally recorded a 48-minute audio file on my phone while driving. I found it while clearing storage. Thought it was just road noise. I almost deleted it. But about 12 minutes in, during a red light, I heard something. Her voice. In the background. Talking. Laughing. Saying a name I didn't recognize. Dale. She was on a call. In my car. On my Bluetooth. While I was inside the hardware store buying light bulbs. And she was telling Dale she liked how he doesn't flinch. I flinch all the time. I'm practically a flinch machine. After the voice memo, I didn't say anything to her. I didn't even look at her differently. Instead, I bought new spoons. A different set. Gold. Fancy. I placed them in the drawer like I was setting a trap. And then I started waiting. Not for her to explain. Not for her to confess. For her to slip. Because people like Marlene, quiet manipulators, they always think they're smarter than you. Until they get comfortable. Until they come back for the spoons they left behind. I didn't bring up the divorce the next morning. Neither did she. She made herself toast. Dry. No butter. Like a person trying to prove a point. And scrolled through her phone like nothing happened. I watched crumbs fall onto her sweater. And for some reason, that detail bothered me more than the divorce itself. If you're going to end a marriage, at least have the decency to not eat toast like a raccoon in a laundry room. She wore perfume that day. Not just any perfume, the one. The bottle she hadn't touched in 6 months. It used to be for anniversaries, now it was for Tuesdays. She left the house with her hair freshly ironed, wearing a blouse I knew she didn't wear for work. Not unless HR suddenly relaxed their dress code to a fair casual. By 10 a.m., I was sitting at the kitchen table, spinning one of the new gold spoons between my fingers, replaying the voice memo over and over again. Dale's name came up 3 times. You make me feel like I'm not invisible. He's so careful, he notices everything. I wish he'd just come get me already. What bothered me wasn't just the words, it was the tone. That kind of softness in her voice used to be mine. I hadn't heard it in over a year. She came back late that night. I asked if she had dinner. She said no. Then she took out a salad from her tote bag and ate it in silence while watching a rerun of Shark Tank. I stared at the back of her head and thought about how many lies a person could pack into a day without choking. Still, I didn't confront her. Because I had a theory. And I needed proof. The forgotten iPad. The next morning, after she left again for work, I checked the drawer under the TV. The iPad was still there, the one we barely used, the one still connected to her iCloud account. I turned it on, held my breath, and saw a flurry of blue bubbles light up the Messages app like it was Christmas. She didn't just have Dale. She had someone else too. 2 threads. 2 men. Different vibes. Dale was poetic. Emotional. Promised her Paris. Was blunt, strategic. Sent her screenshots of flights, Airbnbs, logistics. He had a plan. She had options. I felt sick. I didn't know if I was more hurt by the cheating or the fact that I wasn't even the only one being cheated on. She was double-timing her own betrayal. Is that a thing? Is there a word for that? At one point, she messaged Dale. He's too quiet. I think he knows. I don't care anymore. She was right. I did know. She was wrong about the second part. I cared, but not in the way she thought. I made my first move. That evening, I left the house before she got home. I didn't text, didn't leave a note. I just disappeared for 5 hours. Drove around the suburbs listening to talk radio, staring into the lights of parking lots. At one point, I pulled into a gas station, bought a banana and a scratch-off ticket, then sat in my car for 43 minutes thinking about how strange it was that I now knew more about my wife from her burner phone and iPad than from actual conversations in the past year. When I got home, she was waiting on the couch. No yelling, just this weird, confused smile. "Where were you?" I shrugged. Had to think. She looked unsettled. That was the moment I knew I'd found her weakness, not in her lies, but in her need to control the silence. The more I said nothing, the louder her guilt had to scream inside her head. That night, I slept on the couch. She didn't ask me to. I just did. And when I woke up the next morning, she was standing over me with coffee and a smile so forced it looked like a mask made of skin. She handed me the coffee like a peace offering, but it trembled slightly in her grip. I pretended not to notice. The mug said "Best Husband Ever," a Father's Day gift from 3 years ago that we both knew was ironic now. I took it, said thank you, and took a slow sip, even though it was scalding. She hovered, waited, probably expecting me to ask where she'd been the night before, or maybe if she was still serious about the divorce. I didn't either. Instead, I asked her if she knew where the screwdriver set was. That's the thing about silence. It's not passive. It's a weapon. And if you hold it long enough, it stops feeling like surrender and starts feeling like control. She blinked, opened her mouth like she might ask something, then just said it was probably in the laundry room. I said thanks, and walked away before she could speak again. That day, I worked from home, but I didn't do any actual work. I opened spreadsheets and emails like props on a stage, but my mind was in another room, pacing. By noon, I'd read through another batch of messages from her iPad. Dale was getting pushy. He wanted her to make the leap. He was colder. He sent her a Venmo request for half the Airbnb deposit in a beach town I'd never even heard of. She sent it. No hesitation. I felt like I was living with a person whose soul had been quietly swapped out like a faulty light bulb. But what really broke something loose inside me was one short line I found buried between flirtations. "If he gets weird, I'll say he's unstable. That'll make the judge side with me." It wasn't even directed at a specific situation. It was just a casual strategy, like she was gaming out all possibilities. Like I was a liability to manage, not a human being to mourn. That's when I stopped planning my survival and started planning hers. The dinner that never happened. That evening, I suggested we eat dinner together. Her eyebrows lifted like I'd offered her poison in a wine glass. But she agreed. Said she'd be back by 6. She even offered to pick something up. Thai, her favorite. I said sure. She didn't show up until 9:45. I didn't text her once. When she walked in, holding a bag of cold food and an expression that was somewhere between guilt and exhaustion, I simply said, "You missed dinner." Then I picked up the plate I'd set for her, still untouched, and scraped the food into the trash. She didn't protest, just stood there like a child waiting for detention to end. We didn't talk that night. I went back to the couch. She went upstairs. At 2:13 a.m. I heard the floor creak and peeked through the hallway just in time to see her slipping out the front door. No jacket, no bag, just her phone and keys. I waited. 3 minutes passed, then 5. Then I grabbed my own keys and followed, quietly, keeping just far enough behind that she wouldn't notice the headlights. She walked 2 blocks to a street I barely knew, stopped in front of a dark blue sedan I didn't recognize, leaned in the window, and kissed the driver like they were her real life. I parked, killed the engine, sat there in complete stillness, gripping the steering wheel until my hands ached. When she got in and the car pulled away, I didn't follow. I didn't need to. I had something better. I had a name, the plate number, and one perfect idea forming slowly in the back of my mind like a storm cloud with teeth. The name on the license plate didn't show up in a simple search, so I dug deeper. I used a trick I learned from a former coworker who did digital investigations for insurance fraud. All it took was a snapshot of the plate and access to a registry search that wasn't exactly legal, but not fully illegal either. Let's just say it was one of those gray zones that exists when you know the right forum and the right favor to call in. Dale. Real name, Brandon Dale Hollis. Divorced. Real estate agent. Drives a leased 2023 BMW. lives 26 minutes from my house. And, this part stung, used to coach high school tennis. So not only was I getting cheated on, I was getting replaced by a man with a backhand and bleached teeth. The worst kind. What bothered me wasn't that he existed. It was how prepared she'd been to shift her entire life to him if I didn't go quietly. The way she mapped it out in those messages. I was the inconvenience standing in front of her next chapter. I was the crumpled napkin she had to pretend to fold before tossing. I didn't confront her. Still, because now I was thinking about leverage. She had her plan. I wanted one of my own. And it started with something simple. I changed the locks. She came home the next day around noon, earlier than expected. Probably thought I was at the office. I wasn't. I'd taken the day off. Mental health or something. She tried the door, realized her key didn't work, and rang the bell like a customer. I opened it halfway, leaned on the frame, and said, "Hey, something wrong?" She blinked. "The key isn't working." I nodded, like I had no idea how that happened. "Oh, weird. I replaced the lock this morning. It was sticking." "You didn't tell me. You didn't tell me where you were last night." A long pause. She didn't answer. She just stared at me like I had violated some unwritten marital code, and maybe I had. But it felt good. I wasn't yelling. I wasn't being petty. I was just applying quiet pressure and watching her crack, millimeter by millimeter. I stepped aside and let her in. She didn't thank me, but she noticed something. The couch cushions were gone. I'd removed them, put them in storage. The living room looked skeletal. I wanted her to feel off balance in her own space. She walked into the kitchen. Another detail. Her wine glasses were missing. I'd boxed them up, too. The mugs remained. The regular ones. The boring ones. I wanted her to see that I was pruning the house like a gardener who knows the tree has rot in its roots. That night, she didn't speak much. I offered to make tea. She said no. Went upstairs. At 1:30 a.m., I snuck into her purse. She used the same 4-digit passcode for everything. Birth year of her dead cat. I unlocked her phone, went into the photos, and airdropped myself 5 specific screenshots she'd saved of me. Messages, texts, videos, anything she could twist. One was a clip of me slamming a cabinet from over a year ago. She'd labeled it Mood Tracker. I deleted them from her gallery. From her recently deleted folder too. I left her phone exactly where it was. I didn't need it anymore. The next morning, she was already downstairs when I woke up. She was dressed for work, full makeup, hair curled, wearing the necklace she only brought out when she wanted to feel expensive. She was drinking coffee from a travel mug, not her usual floral ceramic one. I watched her from the stairs, wondering if she felt even a flicker of shame. Then she said something I didn't expect. "I think we should slow down on the divorce talk. Maybe just wait a little." It was so rehearsed, so falsely casual, like she was asking me to skip a dentist appointment. I nodded. "Sure." She smiled, just for a second. A flicker of triumph. But I wasn't smiling. Because in the past week, I had quietly transferred half our joint savings into a private account in a credit union she didn't even know I used. I had changed the beneficiaries on my life insurance. And I had one final thing planned, something I'd been building for days. A message scheduled to send automatically. To Dale. And to E. At the same time. The same message. With a single photo attached. It wasn't a photo of her. Or me. It was a photo of them both. At the same restaurant. On the same night. Because neither of them knew, she was cheating on both of them, too. The message was scheduled for 7:45 p.m. sharp. I had it timed down to the second. Both of them, Dale and E, would get the same photo. It wasn't dramatic. Just a simple candid I'd captured from my dashcam, without them realizing. She was walking out of the exact same steakhouse, less than a week apart, on 2 separate nights. One with each of them. Same parking spot. Same heels. Same fake laugh she used when she thought no one was watching. But I was watching. I didn't do it out of revenge. I wasn't trying to blow up her life for fun. I just wanted to show her what it felt like to be surrounded by landmines she planted herself. All I had to do was wait. I spent that day like it was any other. Ran errands. Watered the dying ferns by the patio. Even called my mother, who didn't know we were separating. I didn't tell her anything. Just talked about how the weather had finally shifted and how the neighbor's new dog barked like it owed money. Inside, though, I was electric. Charged. Like every breath was part of a countdown. She came home around 6:30. Wore a tight black dress she'd claimed didn't fit anymore. Her hair was curled into those loose waves that looked accidental but took 45 minutes. She had perfume on her neck, wrists, behind her knees. I knew the scent, coconut and bourbon vanilla. I used to love it. Now it smelled like a closing door. She walked into the kitchen, pretending not to see me sitting at the island with my laptop. "I have a late dinner meeting," she said. I smiled just enough. "With who?" She blinked. "Too slow. You don't know him. Is it Dale or the other one?" That stopped her. Not because I said it, but because of how casually I said it. Like I was asking if we were out of milk. She didn't answer, just turned away and left the room. 5 minutes later, the front door clicked shut. I checked the time. 7:09 p.m. Perfect. I opened the app. Confirmed the scheduled message was greenlit. 2 names. 2 numbers. 1 image. Sent from a dummy number she didn't know existed. No words. Just silence in JPEG form. At 7:45 on the dot, it went out. 15 minutes passed. Nothing. Then, at 8:03, Dale called her. I saw his name flash across the screen as her phone lit up on the kitchen counter. She didn't answer. It buzzed again. And again. 5 times in a row. Then he texted. For bubbles, rapid fire. She was still at dinner. Probably smiling. Sipping something red. Having no idea the fuse had been lit. At 8:21, the front door slammed open. She didn't even look at me. Walked straight to the dining room and grabbed her purse. Her face was pale. Hands shaking. I heard her whispering. Angrily. To someone on the phone. Pacing in loops like a malfunctioning wind-up doll. "No. That's not what happened. Who sent you that?" "Baby, I swear to God. I can explain." The call dropped. She called back. No answer. Then she tried the other one. More shouting. Less control. She was unraveling. I just sat there, drinking tea, watching the slow motion collapse like a man calmly flipping through a manual while the engine caught fire. She finally turned to me. Her face was wild, confused, betrayed, but not in the way she should have felt. She wasn't sad. She was cornered. "What did you do?" I didn't blink. "Nothing. You sent those pictures. You've been spying on me." I shook my head. "I didn't spy. I observed. There's a difference. You ruined everything." I stood slowly, walked toward her, and looked her dead in the eyes. "No, Marlene. You ruined everything. I just put it under the light." She was silent then, shaking, breathing like she'd run a marathon through a storm of her own making. She didn't say another word. Just stormed up the stairs, slammed the bedroom door, and locked it. I didn't follow. I didn't even flinch. That night, she didn't sleep. I heard her pacing above me, opening drawers, crying, then stopping, then crying again. At one point, I heard her whisper, "Please," to someone over the phone. She was losing both of them, and she knew it. What she didn't know was that tomorrow, she'd lose something else too. Because the next move I made, it wasn't digital. It was legal. The next morning, she didn't come down for breakfast. I sat at the kitchen island with 2 cups of coffee. One for me, one untouched. I wasn't expecting her to join. The night had taken something out of her, not just the exposure, but the realization that the chessboard wasn't hers anymore. She had been playing offense, sure of her advantage, but now she was cornered, holding a queen that no longer had any power. And I just kept moving pawns. Quietly, strategically, one square at a time. By 9 a.m., I'd already showered, dressed, and left the house. I didn't tell her where I was going. I didn't need to. She assumed I was licking my wounds, or worse, stewing in defeat. But I wasn't doing either. I was at a lawyer's office. I had called 3 days ago and booked the appointment under a different last name, just in case. The man I met with, a quiet, older gentleman with the posture of a vulture and the demeanor of a monk, had seen it all. I told him what I knew. I didn't bring screenshots. I didn't have to. I had dates, names, patterns, and most importantly, I had restraint. That's what got his attention. "Most people who come to me," he said, leaning back with a soft whistle, "are already bleeding out from the emotional shrapnel. You're not even scratched." That's when I gave him the folder. Inside it was the financial activity I'd tracked since the day she asked for the divorce. Her withdrawals. The hidden account she didn't know I'd found. The Venmo trail. The hotel invoice from 2 months back, filed under a name she used only once, her high school nickname. He skimmed the papers, nodded slowly, and said the sentence I'd been waiting to hear. "You'll walk away with everything if you want to." I didn't smile. I didn't nod. I just folded my hands and said, "Good. Let's start." When I got home, The house was too quiet. Not peaceful quiet, the kind of quiet that hums with tension, like a power line ready to snap. I walked into the living room and saw her on the couch, staring at the TV, but not watching it. Her eyes were bloodshot. She hadn't changed clothes. Her phone sat on the coffee table, screen cracked, probably from being thrown. She looked up like I was a ghost. They both blocked me. I didn't respond. They think I'm some kind of monster. Still nothing. You think I am too, don't you? I finally looked at her. Really looked. She wasn't the same woman anymore. The sharpness was gone. The rehearsed confidence had evaporated. Now she looked like someone trying to rewind a tape with her fingernails. I think you thought I'd never fight back, I said quietly. I didn't mean for it to happen this way. That's the only true thing you've said in weeks. She tried to cry, but even her tears seemed reluctant. Like her body couldn't figure out if it was regret or just humiliation. She said she was confused, that everything got complicated, that she needed time to think. The usual monologue people give when they've lost control of the narrative. I let her speak. I didn't interrupt. I just watched her spin the rope. Because the next day, I was filing the papers. But I wasn't just filing for divorce. I was filing with evidence. And in our state, that changes everything. Adultery, when proven, strips spousal support, nullifies claims on shared property, tilts custody if there were kids. In our case, it meant she'd leave with whatever fit in her car. And she still hadn't realized the final blow. Because one account, the one her sister helped her hide, was already frozen. I had called the bank that morning, reported suspicious activity. She wouldn't know it until the end of the week, when her card got declined trying to buy a new suitcase. But that night, I sat on the porch with a glass of water, listening to the wind knock the trees around like they owed it something. Inside the house, she was pacing again, opening and closing drawers, moving in patterns I recognized from years of shared living. But now, those sounds didn't belong to her. They belonged to a stranger. And just before I went to bed, she came outside. Didn't say anything. Just stood in the doorway, hugging herself. "Can we talk tomorrow?" she asked. "Of course," I said. After the lawyer. The door closed softly behind her. She thought I was bluffing. She didn't know I'd already signed. The lawyer filed everything at 8:02 a.m. sharp. By 8:17, the clerk had stamped the petition and entered it into the system. I didn't wait for ceremony. I didn't wait for closure. I drove home in silence, windows down, wind tunneling through my sleeves like a cleansing. The house I returned to no longer felt like our home. It felt like a stage after the curtain drops, the lights still buzzing, the props half standing, but the story already over. She wasn't there when I arrived, which was ideal. I had things to do. First, I removed every last trace of shared finances. My name was taken off her emergency contact list. I canceled the streaming services we split, changed every password, set up mail forwarding to AP. Oh, box she didn't know existed. Then I opened the closet and began pulling hangers. Not to throw her stuff out, not yet. Just to remind her that space now had a different meaning. I was halfway through taping boxes when her car pulled into the driveway. It was earlier than I expected. She came through the door in a blur, hair messy, sunglasses still on, lips pressed so tight they nearly vanished. She didn't look angry. She looked exposed, like someone who had finally seen the size of the trap she walked into. "You filed?" she asked without even dropping her purse. I nodded. "This morning. You weren't even going to talk to me first?" I stood there, calm, centered. "We've been talking for months. You just never listened." She opened her mouth, closed it, then turned and walked into the kitchen like retreating would buy her time. I let her. I wanted her to feel that silence again, not just the absence of sound, but the weight of being outplayed. She returned a few minutes later, holding a glass of water like it was armor. "You're punishing me." "No, I'm setting you free. You just didn't expect the price." She sat down, slowly, like her knees didn't trust her anymore. "You sent the photos to both of them. They're gone. They won't even return my messages." I didn't flinch. "I know. You ruined my life. You built it on quicksand." Then the quiet turned, became something darker. She started crying. Not performative tears. Real ones. Quiet, collapsed sobs. The kind that don't beg for sympathy, just come from a body that finally realizes the pain is permanent. I didn't comfort her, because I couldn't be her balance beam anymore. She asked if we could talk. Really talk. Said she wanted to explain, to rewind, to try and see if there was a thread worth holding on to. I looked at her, and for a split second, I remembered our third date. The way she tucked her hair behind her ear and laughed too hard at a joke I didn't even finish. I remembered what it felt like to love her before all the cracks formed. But some damage isn't loud. It's slow, rotting wood under fresh paint. I told her I'd listen, but not today. I needed one more night. Alone. Clear. And then I did something I didn't plan. I left the house. Got in the car. Drove without music or destination. Ended up in a diner 20 miles out of town where nobody knew me, where the waitress didn't smile out of pity, where I could eat something simple and hot and real. I sat there for over 2 hours, watching other people live lives that hadn't imploded. One couple fought over a crossword puzzle. A kid spilled orange juice and burst into tears. A man paid in change. The world kept turning. When I got home, the lights were off. She was asleep on the couch. I didn't wake her. I just walked past her and upstairs, where the papers were waiting. And in the morning, I'd give her one last envelope. Inside, the court filing confirmation. The list of financial accounts, now frozen. The official division of property, clean, brutal, final. And one sticky note. All it said was, "This is what it looks like when someone doesn't flinch." She didn't open the envelope right away. She stared at it for a long time, sitting on the same couch where we'd once planned vacations, laughed about the neighbor's weird lawn gnome, argued over the thermostat. She turned the envelope over twice, like she was hoping it would change shape in her hands. Like it might, somehow, become something else. An apology, a love letter, a reset button. But it didn't. It stayed exactly what it was, the end. She looked up at me. Her voice was small, but not fake. "So that's it." I nodded. "It doesn't have to be ugly. Just finished." She wiped her eyes with the sleeve of a hoodie that used to be mine. "You were a better man than I was a wife." I didn't respond. I didn't need to. I just handed her the pen and gave her space to sign. She did. It took her 4 seconds. It took me 4 years. 3 weeks later, the house was quiet in a different way. No tension. No footsteps at strange hours. No perfume clinging to door frames. Just me, Lasagna the one-eyed cat, and the radio playing old jazz through the speakers in the kitchen. I had replaced the couch, painted the bedroom, donated the dress shoes I wore to our wedding. It wasn't about pretending she'd never been there. It was about reclaiming the space she no longer filled. Funny thing happened around that time. I started sleeping better. Not deeper, just cleaner. No more 3 a.m. wake-ups wondering if she was beside me or on someone else's couch. No more decoding silences. No more mental gymnastics just to make sense of the lie I'd been living in. I started running again. Joined a Saturday morning group. None of them knew anything about my story, and I didn't tell them. They just knew me as Dennis, the guy who always showed up 5 minutes early and never stretched properly. I liked that. It felt like breathing again. One Sunday afternoon, I bumped into Dale at a gas station. I didn't recognize him at first. He looked smaller, somehow. Like life had taken something out of him too. He nodded, awkwardly. "Hey," he said. "Look, I didn't know. About you. About the other guy. About all of it." I nodded back. "You didn't know me anything." She did. He stood there for a second, then looked down at the nozzle like it might offer him a way out of the conversation. "She ever reach out?" he asked. I smiled faintly. She did. And I let her go. He didn't ask anything else. And I didn't explain. Months passed. I found a new apartment closer to the city. Smaller, cheaper, and with an actual decent view. Not of a skyline, but of a little park where kids played and old men argued over chess. The kind of place that didn't demand a second person to make it feel full. But maybe the most surprising thing? I wasn't angry anymore. Not at her. Not at myself. Not even at the fact that the person I once loved had turned into someone unrecognizable. Because I learned something. People don't always destroy things because they're cruel. Sometimes they're just broken, confused, hollow in ways they don't even understand. But that doesn't mean you have to stay in the fire with them. You can walk out. You can rebuild. You can forgive. And you can love again. Not them. Maybe not even someone else right away. But yourself. Fully. Honestly. And without flinching.